and we figured let's talk possible position battles and what the opening day roster could look like.
A lot of decisions have to be made, and so we're going to try to make those decisions with you on this episode. So let's get started right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we're the host of the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your very first listen every day. Be sure you check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Locked On Rays, as well as listening to the other traditional podcast platforms that are available. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at Locked On Rays too. Ulises, we mentioned it on yesterday's show. We'll go ahead and mention it again. Fantasy Baseball League, Locked On Rays Fantasy Baseball League. We have some directions for anybody that wants to join an ever popular league that we've had a lot of fun with it the last couple of years.
Yeah, back by popular demand. It's back. You guys have requested it, so here we are. But because of the amount of requests, we need to kind of filter it down. It's very simple. If you want a spot on this year's fantasy league, you need to compose an email, and you're going to send that to lockedonrays@gmail.com. And in that email, you're going to include two things. Number one, a screenshot or a picture that proves that you've subscribed to our YouTube channel. Okay? Says subscribed. Send that to us. Cool. Number two, you send a voice memo. If you do not know how to record a voice memo, if you have an iPhone, it's a voice memo app. Very simple. You record, you say your name, where you're from, and a mailbag question. No more than 60 seconds. And then you send that to us, and that guarantees you a spot on the fantasy league.
Yeah. By the way, if you don't have an iPhone and need help with what you're trying to do, I can help you. I played around with an Android Google phone, and oh my gosh, I was SOL.
You're going to have to Google if that's the case. But I said iPhone because that's what I operate. So there you go, guys. Sorry. My bad.
Fair enough. All right. Let's talk opening day roster possibilities, projecting the Rays opening day roster. Obviously, we already had first death knell, if you will, with Tyler Glasnow being down for the count for at least the first couple of weeks of the season. So that presents another opportunity for a pitcher. So as of today, Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, more or less 22 of 26 roster spots are accounted for?
Yes, 22. Okay. 22. Should we run through those names really quickly so people know who we are talking about? Okay. So let's go kind of quickly. So I'm just going to go with last names, people. These are the guys that are in for sure. Mejia, Bethancourt, Diaz, Brandon Lowe, Franco, Paredes, Walls, Arozarena, Siri, Margot, Ramirez. Now we're going to the pitching staff. Adam, Armstrong, Beeks, Clevenger, Fairbanks, Poche, Thompson, and let's go with the rotation, McClanahan, Rasmussen, Springs, and Eflin. So if there are a couple of names that you're like, wait, that guy made it already? He's a lock? I think that people are probably going to go with Taylor Walls or Isaac Paredes. They're in, guys. The Rays showed that they really enjoy Taylor Walls' defense. There's no way that they're letting him off the roster. And there's no way that you're leaving the guy who had 20 bombs and tied the home run rank with Arozarena, the team lead for home runs. You're going to put him, off the roster. He's making the roster. So those two guys are definitely in. I'm sure you agree with that.
No, if I agree with you, the only way that those guys aren't on the roster, I would think, are twofold. Injury, which I guess Taylor Walls is dealing with some sort of issue right now, but I imagine he'll be back. So major injury. And then trade, really, Isaac Paredes is traded to X team in return for Y. So with that, we have position players, we have the starting pitcher, we have a bullpen opening. We've got 4 spots to fill. So we're going to go one by one and start with the position player side of things. Ulises, in your mindset, who are those 2 position players that will earn a roster spot? Haven't already.
I need pop. I need a good bat. And I'm forgoing defensive ability here. I really am. I want to get the best bat available. So in between a battle between Jonathan Aranda and Vidal Bruján, I would have to, even though Bruján gives you more positional flexibility, he's way faster, he's more conscientious with the glove, I still have to give the edge to Aranda. He can handle the bat. He's shown that he can. I got to give the edge to Jonathan Aranda there.
Okay, that's fair. And I agree with you on the standpoint of, I think the Rays are pretty well set defensively and versatility-wise. Like, okay, Jose Siri and Manny Margot can cover enough ground. As far as the infield goal goes, Taylor Walls can play pretty much anywhere. You have some versatility with some of those other guys that are spoken for on the roster. It's not like, oh my gosh, we absolutely have to have Vidal Bruján. So this is we've talked about it, and it is very well publicized. Offense, power. And I may be throwing a little bit of a curveball here because I do not have Jonathan Aranda making the opening day roster. That spot one of the spots is Luke Raley that I am going to generously gift because he is out of options. I just want to see what he can do. I want to see if he can put up or shut up in the first couple weeks of the season. I know spring training stats don't matter, highlights don't matter, but I like what I've seen from Luke Raley. I like to see, obviously, if the Rays have kept him on the 40-man for this long, I would expect him to get some sort of opportunity. I feel, and I don't think it's out of turn or out of the question, that Luke Raley has more pop and more potential for 20 to 25 home runs than Jonathan Aranda at this juncture. So that is why I am giving him the edge here. Now, by the end of the season, by midseason, by May, he goes in a 2 for 35 slump. It's DFA City.
Yeah, I mean, we agree on 50% of what you say. I like I said, I do think Aranda is going to make the roster, but I also do think Luke Raley is going to make the roster. You got the positional versatility there. He can play first base. He can play corner outfield. I think he has played some center field. I wouldn't put him there.
No.
But yeah, I mean, corner outfield guy, DH spot, first base, lefty. I mean, it's basically what the Rays have looked for, except for the veteran presence, obviously. Now, the issue that I think is most important here to highlight is not all of that. It's the one thing, option. He's got no options, man. Right. So you're not going to keep this guy on the 40-man this whole offseason and then to just like lose him without giving him any sort of chance at all. Like that doesn't make sense, to be quite frank. So I do think that he gets the edge, which means that Bruján, on my paper, Bruján is not making the roster, and neither is Josh Lowe.
Josh Lowe is making the roster on my end. Why is he not making the roster on your end?
I don't see a situation where you are going to carry potentially 6 outfielders in the roster. I feel like there's a little bit of a clog, and it's not like Raley runs very well. Obviously, Josh Lowe runs way better than he does.
Right.
But I don't think Raley is just, slow truck out there. I think he has okay speed. I think there are way too many similarities in what you're looking for with those two players that having both of them would cause a logjam where one guy is just sitting on the bench for too long. Maybe one guy gets on a hot streak, so the other guy doesn't see a lot of at bats, or you keep trying to look for spaces for the other one to play and for one of them to not get cold, and then neither of them get on a hot streak because they're not getting those consistent at bats. So I just don't see a world where you have Luke Raley and Josh Lowe, because they're going to have to face the same kind of pitchers. So I think you would be creating a logjam there.
So Jonathan Aranda wouldn't face the same types of pitchers as Luke Raley because they are both lefties.
Yes, but I would think that Jonathan Aranda would be playing a little bit of first, and then you can put Luke Raley on the outfield, maybe DHing when Harold is on the bench. You can use that DH spot for Luke Raley.
Unless I'm mistaken, Luke Raley can also play first. I don't know how adequately he can. I mean, it can't be any worse than Jonathan Aranda playing first, right?
That's a good question. Who's a better first baseman? Possibly Raley, but if I were Jonathan Aranda all this offseason, I would have worked on the glove. And in I think it was 2 games ago, where he made a nice couple of plays at first, Jonathan Aranda. So it seems like maybe he did his homework this offseason, like we said on the player reviews. I think it's too redundant to carry both outfielders. Yes, Luke Raley can play first, but I think it's a little bit redundant to have both Josh and Luke there.
That's fair. I opt for the redundancy because I like the power potential of Josh Lowe and Luke Raley, and I look at this roster and I say, who is most likely to slug? Who is most likely to knock one out of the park? Who is most likely to give you those extra base hits? And I think that it's a combination of Josh Lowe and Luke Raley. Having said that, as far as opportunities and playing time, I am absolutely sure that the Rays are going to push Josh Lowe to the forefront, and just based on the situation and the lack of status, whatever it may be, Luke Raley he's relegated to the utility bench role. For him, in my opinion, it's you better figure out what to do coming off the bench. You're not getting as much playing time as really anybody else on that roster, so you better make the most of your opportunities, because if you don't, then it's Jonathan Aranda's turn. Then it's Vidal Bruján's turn. Then it's somebody else's turn. So, but with Josh Lowe, and I'm also just, some of it I think is PR work by the Rays and feeding stories, but we've seen a lot of Josh Lowe articles. We've seen a lot of Josh Lowe press. We've seen some Luke Raley press thus far. I haven't seen a lot of Jonathan Aranda clippings. So True. I'm just kind of taking some of that into account where Lowe's name. Hey, we've learned a lot about the swing changes of Josh Lowe.
The new bats.
We've learned a lot about failure and gaining confidence and talking to his brother. Same thing with Luke Raley. We've learned a lot about him. Making his swing more compact and less complicated. And again, he's so well built and so strong that, half swing, 3/4 swing, and he's still knocking it out of the ballpark. So I'm just taking some of that into account as well.
Fair enough. And that I can see that. I can see that perspective. I think the option though is what makes him just take the edge. I see the redundancy. I do get your want for slugging. But you know what? Because we have different opinions, maybe I wish there was a place where you can kind of put wagers on that sort of thing.
And I will get to that. One quick thing though. So it's Luke Raley and Jonathan Aranda for you. Say Luke Raley comes out, slumps within the first couple weeks. Is it him he gets rid of more or less, and then Josh Lowe gets the call?
That's why I think Luke Raley gets the beat up, because he will have a shorter leash. Like they'll give him a month. Hey, what can you do? He can't do anything. DFA City.
Okay. And then who gets more playing time or at bats between Aranda and Lowe in that case? More action.
If Aranda and Lowe are both at the same time up in the majors, or Aranda gets for okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
I'll have to think
And that might be a future episode too. I mean, again, it's a lot of young guys. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
All right. We'll continue with this, but first, we have to tell you about something called FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download. I said it, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because new customers get a no sweat first bet for up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So just download that FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and incredibly easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So do not miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet for up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So, that's what we have for the position player battle, which I guess is more heated and tougher decisions to make than maybe the pitching end of things. And that's kind of what makes it fun. And again, I'm sure cost was a factor in the lack of free agent wanting to come to Tampa Bay. A lot of factors involved, but at the end of the day, you have a lot of budding prospects, and you got to see who has the ability to stick. And you can't figure that out and determine that out without letting them showcase it at the big league level and then making a decision from there.
And Luke Raley's making his case known. I think he already has 2 bombs, at least by Tuesday evening. Wink, 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 wink. So, he's doing all he can. Let's see. I think, again, competition is going to be healthy for those guys. So those four players, let's see who has it. I mean, I know I saw somebody on Twitter telling us that Ulises Basabe was what are his chances of getting into the roster? I would say very little, but good for him for taking the opportunities in spring training and doing what he can. That's a guy who needs a little bit more development,
I mean, again, and I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at that 40-man roster and I see a glut of position players and prospect status guys. Like, I would think you could bottle up a couple of those and get a bona fide major leaguer, but we'll have to wait and see on that because not all those can squeak onto the roster, I don't think.
Exactly.
As of right now. Or maybe it's a case of, like we mentioned at the front of, okay, we Vidal Bruján's finally figuring it out. Jonathan Aranda, you look like the real deal. Okay, Isaac Paredes, you did great for us in the time that you had, but it's time to ship you off for something else. All right, so moving on. The pitching side of things, starting pitcher, who takes over the spot for Tyler Glasnow? Not necessarily his spot in the rotation, but warm body for injured body. Who is that player that seeps into the rotation due to Glasnow's injury on opening day?
I thought this was a slam dunk. So when we put up that poll, I thought that Yonny Chirinos was going to take that by a landslide.
Yeah.
And yet he didn't. Do you have it, the percentages by any chance?
Off the top of my head, I can pull it up. I know, it wasn't quite a landslide. It was 56% Yonny Chirinos, 40% Luis Patino, and I think 4% of the people were in a drunken stupor because they voted for Josh Fleming in that case.
That's Josh Fleming's burners.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh, for listening to the show. We appreciate you. Hope you subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, I think what a lot of oh no, I clicked on Josh Fleming. I didn't mean to do that. Can I take back my vote? No, you already voted. No. Your ballot's been cast and you screwed it up.
Buddy. Too late. Yeah, fat thumbs. Yeah. Look, man. I thought it was going to be like 70% Yonny. Like it was like 56 to whatever you said was pretty good. Okay, Siri, shut up. 56%. I feel like it's a good edge, but not what I expected. I expected more 70% because you put these three guys, what they have done in the major league level. It's a dunk. It's Yanni. It's Yanni with no doubt in my mind, and that's without taking the Venezuelan bump into the case. If I put the Venezuelan bump, it should have been 90%. But I mean, Josh Fleming has not been successful the last 2 years. Luis Patino has not been successful in the last 2 years, especially in 2022. My goodness. So, is Yanni coming back from TJ? Sure. But the guy didn't get scored on. Yes. Was it like less than 10 innings? Sure. Small sample size. Fine. But he looked good. And he looked good the last time he went out in spring training. I believe it was on Tuesday. So I don't know about you, but I thought this was pretty simple.
No, and I think some of it is just because it's been really such a long time since, Rays fans had seen how successful and how solid Yonny Chirinos was and can be. Like, he's got 240 innings of proven track record as a starting pitcher. Like 3.5 ERA, that's what he averages out at. No, he's not going to win any Cy Youngs. He may not make an all-star appearance, but he is a solid middle of the rotation starter. He has the stuff and he has the moxie, and he's shown the ability to do that. And I think he can continue to do that. Newsflash, but he's thrown more innings in a season than Tyler Glasnow's ever had. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you. And also, would you say that Alex Cobb has been a successful pitcher?
Absolutely.
He never made an all-star game.
Yeah.
You can you can be successful and not have to have those accolades. Obviously, if you do, hey, great for you.
Right.
Joey Wendell, you will forever be an all-star. Andrew Kittredge, good for you, man. You can tell that to your grandkids, and they're going to be really, really proud of you. But you can also just be a really good pitcher and never had the chance.
Yeah.
Johnny can be that guy. I think this is a slam dunk. And you know what? If you're one of the people that think that it should be Luis Patino or that it should be Josh Fleming, please put down on the comment section on YouTube why it should be Patino, why it should be Fleming, and why not Chirinos, because it really it's befuddling me, because I think that is as clear case as there could be.
I mean, what has Luis Patino shown you of late to prove that he is deserving of the spot? And I think a lot of it honestly has to do with the prospect status and the buzziness of Luis Patino and the name recognition of the Blake Snell trade. I think there's a lot of that goes into it. And he is he's got the power fastball, El Electrico, and he can strike guys out where, Yonny Chirinos, he's more of a, pitch to contact guy. It's not, I don't think Yonny Chirinos averaged more than a strikeout per inning. So I think there's some of that too.
You hit it right there. You buried the lead there. A lot of Rays fans, we carry our front office never makes a mistake batch, like a flag, and we wave it proudly. Our front office is so smart,
right?
And they are, but even the smartest front office is going to make mistakes. Jay Cronenworth was a mistake.
Yeah,
100%. Now, the Blake Snell trade, it's a funky one. It wasn't necessarily a mistake to trade Blake Snell at that point because of his value.
Yeah, his value, and I think that I don't know how much. I think it was also a mutual parting of, okay, he's upsetting
what
that
you did to me wasn't cool
with some of his antics, and
and I'm sure he didn't really like the Game 6. I mean, he has said that he didn't really like that. So I'm sure that kind of rubbed him the wrong way. But if we go back to the trade, was it a horrible trade? No, I think but it's not the yield hasn't really been what we all expected. Where's Cole Wilcox right now? Lower minors. He's been injured. Blake Hunt, AA still. Francisco Mejia is the only one that has been successful at the major league level, and yet he hasn't really made himself a starter. He's going to fight with Bethancourt for playing time this whole year, which is great competition. That's awesome. And then we got Patino. So I think a lot of Rays fans are still like holding on to the prospect of Patino because they don't want to lose that chip that we have as our front office is the best and we never make mistakes. It's like, well, maybe sometimes they do.
Yeah. And quite frankly, when it's like a 4-for-1 deal like that, I mean, if you hit on one and a half of those guys, you're sitting pretty well there too. It's just, I think at the time, like all 4 of those guys were top 100 prospects, which again goes to the larger point of you can't get obsessed about the prospect thing in the rankings. And Blake Hunt, friend of the program, go back and listen to that interview. I mean, if anything, I think the Rays landed their next general manager, future vice president of baseball operations, if and when, whenever his baseball career is over. But it's still TBD, still early. Like let's fast forward 5 years and see how this shakes out. I mean, we could be looking back at it and saying, wow, some of these guys were late bloomers. That's very possible as well. So
Patino is 1 year older than Franco, is he not?
Yeah.
23. So like you can also just give him a little more time to develop. That's also true.
Right. Very fair.
But again, that's not the question. That's not the question. The question is who should supplant these innings? And I think it should be a dunk that it should be Johnny Chirinos and not Patino nor Fleming.
Absolutely. Okay. Now moving on to the bullpen, the relief side of things. Who is that final spot earmarked for? Ulises.
Well, I am going to go with the non-field aspect. I'm going with the business aspect of things. I'm going with the Rule 5 laws and regulations. Kevin Kelly. I remember he was acquired, I believe, in the Rule 5 draft by the Guardians, and then he was flipped to Colorado, and then Colorado flipped him to the Rays. I feel like that was the tree for cash considerations. They obviously liked what they saw. In 130 plus innings, he had a 3.17 ERA, a 1.13 whip, opponent average of 230. This guy should be serviceable. He should be the last guy on the bullpen for now. I think you give him a shot. And see what he has. If he's healthy and if he's able to post, I think he takes the spot. I don't think they would have gone through all that flipping and shenanigans if they didn't really think that he would make the stable.
That's a lot of work to do for the through the Rule 5 draft, and I think the Rays had to give up like $100,000 to acquire him from the Rockies. I mean, there was a lot of clearly the Rays. They saw his name and that he was still available. It's like, we got to try to make that extra effort to land him. And again, based on what he did in AA and AAA last season, again, minor leagues, but still amazing numbers. And if you look at his delivery, it's again, one of those, hey, it's all about funkiness with the Rays, and a guy that has that sidearm action and in the horizontal movement, the fastball slider, like that's right up the Rays' alley. And I think that can work wonders against some of the right-handed heavy lineups. I mean, really all throughout baseball, but across the AL East as well. And just reading a scouting report, hey, you're in a jam. You got bases on. You need a ground ball. Get out of it. You bring in Kevin Kelly, and he takes care of that. And actually, if you can you run through the relievers who already we believe have locked up a spot?
Yeah, of course. Let me get that set up. The relievers would start with Jason Adam, Sean Armstrong, Jalen Beeks, Garrett Clevenger, Pete Fairbanks, Colin Poche, and Ryan Thompson.
Okay. So that next spot, I'm also in agreement with you that it would go to Kevin Kelly. Having said that, if not Kevin Kelly, do you have an idea of who it would go to after that? Or it's really Kevin Kelly or bust? Because I've seen some mentions of Calvin Fauché, and I'm just going to say he had 20, and I know he's put in some bad spots. The Rays did not do him favors, but in the action that again, it's relievers. It's, I'm not going to make this analogy, but the Rays, throw relievers away like crazy. You had 20, 25 innings to put something up, and you didn't. So it's now somebody else's opportunity, unless some sort of injury shows its ugly head.
And
so
I believe that Fauché would have multiple options because he just made his debut last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would think that due to the Rule 5 implications of having the guy in your 26-man roster, I would think that Calvin Fauché is going to be getting familiar with Durham.
Yeah. So I think that the business side of things, and I think Kevin Kelly has, quite frankly, more upside. I mean, quote from Peter Bendix after the selection was made: "We took him because we think he's capable of getting big league hitters out right now." I think there's something to be said for that. And I think, I know I mentioned sidearmor, but it's a funky sidearm too, with the hand and wrist action as well. So that's something else to consider. And I think he could be a fun kind of similar to Ryan Thompson, but different in a couple ways as well. So there we go. So we have a little bit of a disagreement, not on the pitching side of things, but on the position player side of things. So very curious to see how that will shake out.
And this is where you guys come in on YouTube, on the comment section. Again, these are the 4 names: Vidal Bruján, Jonathan Aranda, Luke Raley, and Josh Lowe. You can only pick 2. Yeah. Please drop your picks on the comment section below, and so we can see what you guys think.
Now, with all that said, Ben Gamel, Charlie Culberson, Daniel Robertson, no chance.
I'll keep it simple. If Gamel, if Culberson, or D-Rob are in opening day, the Rays are in trouble. Something very bad happened.
They better very bad happened. Trades. Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I will save this rant that's building up for another episode.
Don't jinx us, because there could be a situation like August 13th where in the lineup you see Ben Gamel, Charlie Culberson, and Daniel Robertson.
That's fine in August. Okay. But opening day, something very wrong has gone if these guys are in the mix.
If that's the case, I mean, the Rays in that situation, like if you're down to that, roll Brian Anderson out there, and Doug Wechter and Dwayne Stats. Give them some at-bats.
Look, and I know we're going long here, but like if D-Rob needs to come in because somebody's hurt, where's Curtis Mead?
True.
Where's Kyle
Luzardo? I mean,
right. I'd rather see.
Where's Greg Jones?
Yes, I'd rather see Curtis Mead on the field than D-Rob, 1,000%. I would rather see Josh Lowe, Vidal Bruján in the outfield than Ben Gamel. 100%.
I know we're going long here, but here's a question real quickly. Ties in. Who gets more at-bats in 2023? Luke Raley or Curtis Mead for the Rays?
That's a really good question. I'm really hoping it'll be Curtis Mead, because if that's the case, then things are going really, really well.
Yeah. Again, no disrespect to Luke Raley. I just think he's the appetizer, and Curtis Mead is the steak dinner.
Yeah.
Josh Lowe and some of these other guys as well.
And hey, there are really good appetizers out there. You can sometimes be full with an appetizer. Yeah. You're like, that was really good. The sampler. Who doesn't love the sampler? I mean,
Matt Stairs made a career of being an appetizer.
Hey, and a lot of millions. So there you go.
All right. Again, quick reminder, I'm just going to make it really brief. Again, take that screenshot to prove that you are subscribed to the Locked On Rays podcast on YouTube. And with that screenshot in the email you type up to lockedonrays@gmail.com, send us that voice memo. Your name, where you're from, the question, comment, hot take you have, and that will earn you a spot in our Locked On Rays Fantasy Baseball League. So in that email, we need 2 items. We need a voice memo, and we need a screenshot. That's it.
Simple. And then come on. Even a blank would do it.
First come, first serve, too. So that's how we're ordering them.
Yep.
No preferential treatment to it's really more preferential treatment to whoever listens first and follows the directions and handles the task first. So
exactly.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your very first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast. That is also free and available on all platforms. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you on Friday.